Welcome to Only One You Need Radio. We're not the only one you need. You are. We just show you how to get out of your own way. With your host, speaker, author, business coach, and consultant, David Dubé.
Welcome to Only One You Need Radio. It's your host, David Dubé. So excited to have you here with me today. In this episode, we are continuing on our course here of talking about communication hurdles and how to resolve them. And last episode, we talked about how to deal with vulgar language, people who use vulgar language. In this one, we're going to use people who use inflammatory language because, well, this is kind of like the big thing that our media has been taking off with in recent time, talking about how a lot of people are being either sexist, racist, or some other form of ist. And it's kind of, it's sad for those who do it. And I believe that the media is propagating it to a certain extent to make more of it, to make more people angry at each other for using these inflammatory words or taking inflammatory action towards other people. Whether it's right or wrong, it's silly in most regards, the way it's being portrayed and the way it's, I could say it's being advertised is it really seems to be more advertised than anything else. And our media is eating it up. And the irony of it is the amount of people who are doing it is like a teeny tiny, smaller, tiny amount of people. But because the media focuses on it so much, it creates divisiveness, and it's a tool to separate us as a collective, as a people who care about each other. Inherently, we should care about each other. And I feel that 97, 98, 99% of the people really do care about you and don't want to get in a fight with you and aren't angry and aren't out to get you. There's a small percentage that just happens to be that way. But that's the percentage that the media personifies as, oh, this is everyone. I mean, do you think that in our day and age right now, knowing that security is the way it is at airports, that someone's going to be like, well, I'm going to just bring this, and hopefully when I get on that airplane, we'll make something happen. Everyone's getting caught. You can't even carry a bottle of water because they want to make $8 on the other side. Like it's pure stupidity. It really is. And it's been pure stupidity since they passed it. Some guy had a shoe bomb. I don't believe a word of it. Not even one word of it. To me, it's ridiculousness. And here, the divisiveness of using inflammatory language to take over and ruin your life and to have ownership over you it's stupidity. It really is. It's to use those words, is below the existence of any normal human at all. Like, for you to have to use those words. The other part is that you, as the individual listening to someone using inflammatory language, when someone says something that's derogatory, whether it's to you or to someone else, it's your ability to remove yourself from it that makes it or makes it not derogatory. So this goes back to the last episode where I talked about dealing with people with vulgar language, and I talked about taking responsibility. Your action as a human being is to first care. First care. First, you should care about you. Second, you should care about others. Now, when it comes to communicating with someone, first you should care about them, and then you should care about you. Okay? Now, what I mean by that is I'm not saying you should be invalid in your opinion, in your stance, or anything like that. But if you're in a conversation with someone, if you're having rapport with someone, and someone ends up using inflammatory or divisive words towards you, there's something called being the bigger person. Now, before we get to talking about being the bigger person, I want to talk about Words have zero value. I'll repeat that. Words have zero value. They mean nothing. They only mean something when you allow them to have meaning. That's it. A word has zero meaning until you add meaning to it. You are the carrier of that meaning, not them. You, not them. Here's where responsibility takes place. You are responsible for how you take or interpret words that come out of people's mouths. They're not responsible for the way you interpret them. You are responsible for the way you interpret words. So when someone says something you consider derogatory, it's because you are allowing that to be derogatory to you. It doesn't have to be. You are allowing it to be derogatory to you. Here's what happens when that takes place. You allow that word to have power over you. When you allow that word to have authority over you, that means the person who used it now has authority over you. And when you're smaller than the words that are being used towards you, you cannot be a whole human. You cannot face. There's less of you now because you're thinking in anger. You're thinking not of wholeness, you're thinking of separateness. And when you think in separateness, this is when people use other divisive language, and then you begin to use inflammatory language towards them. And it becomes this spitting match or shooting match of who can piss off who the most with the worst words. And that doesn't work. There's no solution, no whole can be found in two halves. No whole can be found in two halves. Okay? If you have a cup that's half full of water and they have a cup that's half full of water, you can pour your half into theirs. They can pull their half into yours, but there's no full cup either way. Does not matter. You can't get a whole from two halves. Now, you might be thinking you can get a whole from two halves. If you cut an avocado in half and you put the avocado pieces back together, then you have a whole avocado. I get that. But you, if you're not acting in the wholeness of who you are, can't come to the resolution because there's a saying, you can't get there from there. Meaning, you can't get to the solution the same way you came into the problem. If they come at you with negative language and you're going back at them with negative language, with vulgar and inflammatory language, neither of you will come up with a solution because you're both effing angry and you're both not thinking complete because you're not standing in the power of you now. You're standing separate from who you are. Why? Because you have now identified yourself as being that inflammatory language that they used, or because you're being offended by it. You're associating yourself to it, which now hurts you. And because you feel hurt based on that language, you can't solve that problem anymore. You've completely ruined that. And your responsibility in this is to conquer this communication hurdle, right? To resolve this solution. The solution to this is to resolve it, not to continue to break it. You can agree to disagree with them, and that's fine. But you can't give your power away to the language they're using. If you do, guess what? You're no better than they are at that point. You've succumbed to the language that they've used. I don't know, like people say, well, he held a gun to my head, so I did it because I didn't want to die. Okay. Understandable. That word is not going to kill you. But people act as if that word is going to just dismember every part of who they are. And it doesn't have to. If I called you a thwut, would you be offended? First off, you have no idea what a thwut is. So there's no reference to what it is. It could be good, it could be bad. You don't know. If I say, you're such a thwut. And depending on how I'm saying it, you're like, I still don't get it. So it doesn't affect you. It has zero effect on who you are because you have no frame of reference to it. But as soon as we put frame of reference to it, you may get totally offended or you might be the happiest person in the world. Now, I just made that word up. There is no meaning to the word thwat that I know of. But because you have no context, you can't associate it with anything to be offended by. But what we do is we have all these words that the media and other people tell you, well, you should be offended if someone uses that word towards you. What you've just done is you've given 100% of your power away to that person who used it. And it's ridiculous. The craziest thing is when people use inflammatory words and we let it control us. I used to work with a guy who would swear and cuss at me all the time, just trying to get under my skin. And I used to entertain it. I used to come back and give him, spit back the feedback to him, and we'd banter back and forth. But after a while, it got really old. Like, I was just sick and tired of hearing it. So what I do is I just let him do it. And I didn't retort. I didn't come back at him with anything. And after, I think it was like the second day of him constantly berating me, he just said, dude, you're a waste of my time. I said, you got that right. And he stopped. He had no power. See, I was teaching him how to treat me by allowing him to do it. But though I was bantering back with him, now I wasn't using inflammatory language like this, like we're talking about, but it was like sarcastic banter. But just day after day after day, I was just like, oh, I just can't take it anymore. So I stopped. And then what he would do is he would get more and more vulgar. And then at the end, he was inflammatory, but I never responded to it because if I did, it would instigate him to want to do more of it. And so by stopping it, he stopped because he was sick and tired of not getting a response. He was doing it for the response. People use those words because they're doing it for the response. They want you to fly off the handle. They want you to be rigid. They want you to lose your shit. They bait you. And when you fall for the bait, they own you. And it's not worth being owned. I mean, you tell me, would you rather be owned or would you rather not be owned? You'd rather not be owned, wouldn't you? Based on that, you let these words have less meaning to you, you can laugh at them. And when you laugh at them, they're going to be like, why are you laughing? Like, they're going to be offended that you're laughing at it. Like, you should be offended by me using this word. And here you are laughing at it. You're not laughing at the word. You're laughing at them using the word and how silly they are using the word. By doing that, you take back your power. You don't take back, you actually keep your power. By letting them just do what they do, they're going to get bored of it, which is what I did. By laughing at them, you keep your power and you tell them that they have none over you. And when you do that, you take all power away from them. You take all authority away from them because you're standing your ground, you're standing in your power, and from there, you can get to a solution. From there, you can come to an agreement. But when you lose it, you don't. And I don't want you, for any reason, to lose your power. You have no reason to give away your power to anyone, for any reason whatsoever, especially when they're using inflammatory language. It's A, it's not right to use. B, to me, it's just stupidity. It really is. If you have to use that kind of language to create authority over someone else, you have zero authority, and all you're trying to use is your power, perceived power, and dominance over someone else. And the idea is you're so insecure, you have to reach out to words that hurt people, potentially hurt people, in order to get something done. And that should tell you how little of a human being they are. And you shouldn't buy into it ever. Let it lose its meaning. And when it does, you'll have authority not only over yourself, but you'll have authority and a dominion over other people based on the fact that you don't give in to that kind of BS. Now, I'm not saying you're going to own them and you're going to be better than them. I'm just saying anyone who uses these words, you will always have authority and dominion over them. Because you are better than the idea that those words have over anyone, especially yourself. I don't care what community you belong to. It doesn't matter. The language shouldn't affect you. But once you let it, you're less than whole. And you can't come to a solution when you're half of who you are, when you're not whole anymore. So don't give in to other people's use of words. This stuff you see in the media, it's up to you to buy into it. The other part of it, too, is if you use this and you teach other people how to deal with the inflammatory language that's being used and broadcast and presented, once we all get over the fact that these words can have way less meaning than we give them, which means they have less authority over who we are and the dominion of ourselves and the sanctity of who we are, once we share this message and allow people to understand that you're not that word, them saying that word doesn't represent who you are by it, we can all come to agreement so much quicker. We can all be better people today by understanding that those words have way less meaning than the media gives them, than other people give them. And when we do that, we take back our power and we can come to solutions so much quicker in this world than ever before. What do you say? On board? If you're on board, make sure you leave feedback, subscribe. If you're on iTunes, make sure you rate this channel. Don't wait, don't hesitate. Do it right now. Rate this channel. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, get notified. Go back and listen to the other episodes. I appreciate you very much. I'm David Dubé with Only When You Need Radio. It's time that you be the person you're meant to be. Believe in all that you're capable of and become more than you thought imaginable. I'll catch you on the next episode.